The people living along the Mau Forest complex will now have to wait longer before they could establish whether the complex rightfully belongs to them or the Kenya Forest Service, a task force mandated by the Ministry of Environment to listen to their views and bring forth recommendations, is yet to get solutions on the matter.
Unaweza pata jina moja iko hapa na tena pia iko hapa, lakini ni ID ni moja.
The day-long stakeholders meeting to seek amicable solution between the government and the indigenous communities living in Mau Forest. And it seemed no compromise was in sight, going by the deafening uproar. The government on one side trying to protect the endangered water tower, while the inhabitants decrying violation of their human rights in the government's eviction plan.
Wakati huo ndio tulifukuzwa na hata hakuna kitu, wengine wetu tulibeba. Hata igawa tulikuwa na vyombo mingi na hata bereni wakati tulikuwa tunakaa forest.
The task force on the implementation of the decision by the African Court on Human and People's Rights says the matter is sensitive.
We are at the very beginning of these hearings, and so we are hearing people say a lot of things about how they are affected or what they'd like government to do for them, but we still don't have. It will be a while before we have clarity on what recommendations we can give.
The Ogieks want their land, while the government through the Kenya Forest Service is fighting forest encroachment.
Maana tulifanya kazi pamoja tukishirikiana, yani kudevelop kama ile forest yetu ili iwe nzuri. Na hakuna yeyote alikuwa akiharibu miti wakati tuliishi na hawa.
The real concerns are people who have told the African court and courts here in Kenya and are telling us here that at different times they used to live in a section of the forest and now they don't. And others who say they came to live in the forest at a certain point and they have been using the forest for years, and they are worried that the government might make a decision that is not in their interest now.
In 2009, the mass eviction of Ogiek's people from the Mau Forest by the Kenya Forest Service forced the Ogieks to lodge a case against the government with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, arguing their political, social and economic survival were threatened. The Human Rights Court ruled in their favor, directing the government to back off on the restrictions it had imposed on land transactions in the Mau Forest complex. The government complied, but the thorn in the flesh is how the two parties can engage in amicable settlements.
There isn't going to be any recommendations coming out of here today, but we are likely to have more conversations in much smaller groups with the communities to try and get into the more complicated questions that are rising.
The Mau complex is the largest indigenous mountain forest in East Africa, clearly important for both humans and wildlife conservation. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.